Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Hello. Welcome to Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends, right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Today, we're going to meet a new friend, and I love meeting new friends. He's a recording engineer and a sound mixer and a voice actor. Welcome, Matt Kulewicz. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Finally.
So nice to be here.
So I understand you have a master's degree from NYU in music technology, and your specialization is Tonmeister studies. What the hell is that?
Tonmeister is a German word that translates to master of sound or master of tone. And basically, it's kind of a focus in recording engineering that is a mix of knowing the technical engineering side of things, like the microphones, how signal flow works and things like that, knowing acoustics science, knowing how sound reflects in a space, so when you're capturing the space you know exactly how the sound will be replicated, and then knowing the music, knowing the score, knowing how orchestration is composed and how to read music and how musicians in certain types of ensembles will read the music. So it's a Tonmeister is essentially supposed to be an expert in all three things. And up until recently, it was only programs available in Europe that had Tonmeister programs, and NYU is one of the first accredited programs to actually have a Tonmeister certificate program. And I was actually the last student at NYU before it became an accredited program, but they still had like a certificate, official, unofficial kind of certificate program. And so you get to study all three of those things and try to be an expert in all three of those things. Because you'll find, like, ask any musician, they'll know their instrument and the music really well, and they'll know how they sound in certain spaces, but they know nothing about the engineering. And then you have a bunch of studio heads who are amazing at capturing amazing sounding music. They know the mics, they know how their studio sounds. But if you ask them, can you show me the nuances of this second violin part? Like, I'll make it sound good. I don't know how to, they might not be familiar with reading music, but they might know the nuances that a musician might know. So the idea of a Tonmeister is that you kind of get all three things.
Totally. So it's like truly the marriage of like the science of sound, meeting musicology, meeting the technology of music.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I find that so fascinating. I was a music major, but I was a performance major. So I studied an instrument, and I know nothing. And in hindsight, it's so funny because I was a voice major, and I also did a lot of like theater and such. And it's so funny when you study performance, you're kind of just like, well, it's about the performance. And so like, when you're doing like a show, for example, it's like, I don't want to be a techie. Like, I don't know about that. Or like, like you go into a studio and record, like, I don't know about that. And now as like an adult, when you look back, it's like, wait, that's like the most important stuff to know. Like,
they make you look good.
Thousands of dollars if like I took the time when I could to learn it all. How did you come to that? Did you come into it as a musician, or did you come into it as a sound engineer? Like, how did you get to that place?
I did my undergrad in a state college in New York, SUNY Oneonta in upstate New York, and it was It was a Bachelor of Arts in Music Industry was the name of the major, so like a music business degree with a minor in audio production. The professor, who was actually now the director of the NYU program, Paul Geluso, he was a adjunct at my undergrad. And so we met each other a few years ago, working at your Sam Ashes and your Guitar Centers and trying to get into the audio world and interning at studios, and then actually fell back on doing IT work because it was a salary job. In your early 20s, money is a nice thing to have. So I backed away from audio, and then I had this point in my life where I'm like, I can't fix people's computers anymore. I need to do what I want to do and what I'm really passionate about. And it was music and audio. And so I didn't want to move out of, I'm from Long Island, New York. So I didn't want to move out of the state just yet. And I was kind of comfortable there. So I was like, well, what programs are around me? Oh, NYU. Oh, I happen to know someone who's teaching there who I remember back from my undergrad days. And so for my master's studies. So it's that kind of that journey.
Yeah. So as a teenager, like, because when you majored in music business, like, what was your goal? Were you like, I want to grow up and be an A&R guy? I want to go and be like, what was the intention when you were, 14, 15-year-old you?
I was one of those kids, like, you look at, your favorite musicians on stage, you go, I want to do that. Like, how do you do that? How does someone do that? And I was an edgy teenager and had my mom take pictures of me with my hair down and holding a guitar like this, looking badass. I definitely had that moment, but I grew up always having music in my life. I was taking like piano lessons since I was in second grade. I was always in the band and jazz groups playing trombone and doing piano things. And, in high school, I was, if I wasn't in a band, I was helping run like, really, really crappy PA systems in the basement of churches, running like local, high school band shows and things like that. And so I knew music was something I wanted to do in audio, but I didn't know what. It was, well, state school. It's, affordable and it's a few hours away. That's a great introduction into maybe I can find, where within the music audio world I want to live. And so that's how I took my first big step into the education and the future in audio and music, what I liked.
So what happened in school where you were like, oh, sound engineering and being a recording engineer, like this is what I really like, how did that connection happen?
When I was like, I remember going to my undergrad, I have no idea, just something with music or something with sound. I just really love it. And I don't know what. So in college, in my undergrad, I was in so many bands. I was,
Do you play multiple instruments? Because like you mentioned the piano, you mentioned the trombone.
Yeah. I like I said, I have formal training in piano for many years, but I took some lessons for guitar, some drum lessons, bass, a little bit on and off throughout the years. If I had to pick one instrument that I do best, it's piano, but like I'm one of those guys that can kind of pick up anything and keep a beat. I can jam. Yeah. What's around? Oh, you need someone to do that thing? Yeah, I'll pick that up and start noodling away at it. And well, we can jam, we can hang. And so in college, I just did all these bands and whether it was like rock metal type stuff or jam bands or jazz groups, anything I can get my hands on while figuring out what I liked. I did a bunch of internships. So I did like a internship at a radio station years ago. Oh my God, like 20 something years ago. And like through doing all these things, I learned, okay, I don't like the reproduction of music. I don't like taking someone else's music and just playing it and hyping it up. I want to be on the side of creating the thing. And so that's what helped my first direction, steering that direction of saying, okay, I don't want to reproduce the music. I did live sound. I did all those things. I want to be on the side of making it. And so that was like my first kind of hint of where in audio and music I wanted to go. And then it wasn't until graduate school that it went from I want to be on the making music side to, oh, it's not just music or anything like that. It's film sound. That is where a huge challenge that I saw from it. Just, I don't know, I never thought of it as even an option. And I just like took a class and I was like, oh, I want to do this. This is so cool. This is so challenging. And it's that creative side of it. I'm not being that rock star, but in my own head, I'm a rock star, but being able to help create things from nothing just was such a cool idea.
Was there a particular film that you saw in that class that you're like, that kind of just like made you like, oh my God. And like, you kind of got it. Because I know a lot of, because I think of sound design, I think of audio guys in general. I think of that as being such a unique thing, because the thing about, and what I always feel about sound, whether it's like watching a film or a television show, or you're listening to, an album that's been mastered masterfully, is that it takes a very special ear and a very special person to do, because your average person can't necessarily hear like, oh, this is off, or oh, the mix of this is like weird. But when something is good, it's good. And so I think it takes a very special, was there like a specific thing or a specific movie or a specific film or a specific thing where like it clicked for you?
I will say that hindsight is very much 2020 in this case, that if I look back now, I see all the clues that at the time I had no idea. Like, I am a huge video game nerd. I was, reading Lord of the Rings and Star Wars books as a kid and a huge sci-fi nerd. And I was always the kind of person growing up listening to my favorite music. And I always loved the making of. I always love like, I want to know how the sausage gets made. I want to see how that's done. Like, I love the final product, but I also want to see how they did it. And I was just always fascinated by that. And then in terms of like inspiration, especially from the film side, Ben Burt, he's the guy who did all the sound effects for Star Wars with George Lucas in the 70s. You know, before him, there was no such thing as a lightsaber or a Millennium Falcon. And so you had no idea what is this thing. And he's the one that gave it life. You know, if you hear, oh, that's a lightsaber. Well, this guy created it. And now every child in the world at some point will know what a lightsaber is. And it's so iconic. And so
just by saying,
exactly. So it's just so, or they're going, it's Darth Vader. Like, he helped create those sounds, and that's so cool. And so and that was always in the back of my head. So when I was in grad school, I took a class. It was like an elective, and it was a class called Audio for Film. And there was two classes. So it was like a year-long course. And every project in the class was in escalating difficulty, but was pick any clip of film. Like the first project was like 30 seconds, like a cartoon on YouTube or whatever. Take all the sound out and rebuild it, recreate everything, figure out how to recreate it. That just blew my mind. That was like, I don't know. Oh, okay, let's figure it out. And you're like in a group projects, like, oh, you do the music, you do the sound effects, I'll do the dialogue or whatever, and like learning how to record and learning what Foley is and making footsteps and things like that.
Were you guys doing it all digitally, or were you kind of doing like old school, like the old radio shows, like clomping like bricks?
Oh yeah, in NYU, one of the old studio was it the old studio B or C in the undergrad floor of studios at NYU. They have like a little crappy collection of like, here's some dried grass and a bucket you can make noises out of, and borrow your friend's boots and really try to just figure out how to make those sounds and how to do it, and just that creative process of syncing, doing footsteps and syncing it to the picture and everything. And that was so cool. And then it culminated in that class when your big project, it was just me and one other person, and I got very ambitious, and they're like, hey, pick like an 8-ish minute clip. And I said, okay, 10 minutes then. And I'm going to pick the opening scene from Gangs of New York, where all the different like families assemble and they have that giant brawl and everything. And I wanted to recreate that. And not only that, but I challenged myself to say, I'm not going to use any library effects. I'm going to create every sound effect myself. And that was a huge challenge. But honestly, I think it sounded better because I didn't use library effects, that I actually went into my folks' house and dug in the garage and found a bunch of old rusty tools and using my little field recorder and going king, king, and trying to get like fighting noises and weapons and things like that. Or going to the grocery store and go buying like day old vegetables and then putting a microphone in your sink and going and just like, making gory gut sounds and whatever. And like that, doing like that was such this like eye-opening, and it got so much like I wasn't even thinking about it as a class or as work. It was just like, I want to do this. And then that was like, yep, film sound is the way to go for me. That's the direction of the creative part of music audio. It's got to be in making film and television.
That's exciting. So what was your first, you're learning this in school and you're realizing like, hey, this is what's for me. What was like your first foray into professional film sound?
So as part of the master's degree at NYU in the music tech program, you have to do a master's thesis. And the master's thesis in that program, in that department, is very challenging in that there's a certain degree that the average master's thesis study paper is versus like what like a doctorate PhD level is. And it was always my understanding that the difficulty and what the professors are asking of you for a master's thesis in the music technology program was almost like in the middle of like, it's more than just a normal master's project, but it's not quite a doctorate level project. So I like, my mind was like an 80-page research thesis, like when I was done with it. But I decided, as I wanted to do recording study. And so I decided to do a study on the difference of height channels in a multi-channel microphone system for surround sound. So the idea that if you have a thing you're recording and you want to capture like a 1-to-1, each channel in a surround sound, like if you think surround sound is like a 9.1, 9 different channels plus a subwoofer. So I'm going to have 9 different microphones pointing in each direction and change up and change up the different height microphones. I give you that kind of the space, and see if just by changing the microphone type and style changes the way you perceive the space when you listen to it after the fact. And so that's a whole topic unto itself. But the point is that through doing that project, I needed to find things to record, right, in order to have material for my study. So I worked closely with the film scoring department, and I'd help run a lot of their film scoring sessions when I was working at the studio on campus at NYU. And I connected with a composer, an amazing composer, and she was also finishing her graduate program. And she, through being a composer, was friends with a lot of film students at Tisch, the big film school in
Yeah.
NYU.
Yeah.
And so she was friends with a bunch of people who are doing their graduate film project before they go off into the world to be, you know, filmmakers and everything. And so she was writing the music for four different friends in the Tisch program. And so I said, if you will be okay and they would be okay with me recording the music for my project, I will record it and mix it for free for them, because for me that's just a challenge, that's just fun to do, and I just need the materials for my project. So I'll record it the way you want me to, but I'm also going to record it this insane way, you know, for my thesis. And I also am offering to, as a secondary thing, I'll mix your film for free. I'll just mix it. Like, do you have a mixer? Do you need a mixer? And 3 of the 4 films needed a mixer. So I mixed the music for all 4 films, but 3 of the 4 directors, filmmakers needed mixers for their film. And so I got to mix 3 very different types of films. One of them was a film being done. It was like an art film, and it was being done in VR. And so I was mixing audio and music for VR for I think it was Oculus, but it ended up being at Tribeca for you know, notable VR films. And this is 2015. This is like, you know, so very, you know, very early
on
in VR filmmaking and everything. And so that was my first foray into the filmmaking outside of just for fun kind of thing. And then from then, I basically am still friends with most of those people today, and they have recommended me through the stages to the next project, to the next project, to the next project, and everything. And so that was how I got started, was doing those graduate thesis films. They graduated, started doing actual work, and they brought me along with them most of the time and shared me with their friends.
It's all about the network, right? It's all about your
relationship. Oh yeah.
Do you so is that like the total of your focus, or do you do your own projects as well?
I still very much do my own projects. Like some of my music writing and creation, that's kind of been on the wayside, just because you have only so many creative hours in the day, you know, to put into things. So, you know, I've tasked myself this year. Of course, I decided this in the middle of February, so I'm starting in March, but that I want to, for the next 9 months or next 10 months, basically record, and release a song every month. As like a challenge to I know like writers do that a lot, or poets, and you say, okay, I'm going to write X many pages a month. I don't care what it is. I just want to put that process into motion and just hone my skill. And so, but the thing is, I do find through my work, different projects to be creative. And I think that helps me. Like, I'm working, on a project with an actor friend who's a very well-known actor. He's been in the industry for decades. He's always been a musician, but never professionally, in terms of like, that's not his moneymaker. That's not his main thing. His main
form of income. Right.
Exactly. But he's always been passionate about it. And so I've actually been working with him on writing and producing an album, and it's actually almost done. It's in mastering. We're getting ready to promote it, but not quite yet. But I get to, you know, he would record things just man with a guitar, John Prine style. And I would kind of, a bass line would fit really well here, or background vocals would fit really well here. And I just kind of like do it and be like, what do you think? And like 90% I'd be like, that's great. Let's do it again, but I like it. And, or I'd be like, not feeling it this one, but maybe in the chorus. And so that was my way of putting those creative, you know, that creativity into other projects. And that's just side projects. But even like professionally, with some of the gigs I work on, I'll still interject my creative musical ears, or, you know, just, you know, my brain works differently than everyone else's. And it's a little like, you know, you hear things that other people may or may not hear. And so you always want to try to find those moments, be like, ooh, what about this? Just like nudge it forward. Hey guys, I got an idea. Like that's my way of exercising my creative needs, you know?
Yeah. Do you find that people, because I know that like a lot of times in my experience, whether it's like musicians or performers or like directors or filmmakers, they're oftentimes people are very protective of what they consider their baby. Do you find that when you do have like, hey, I'm hearing something and I think that this would add to it, do you find that you often really have to sell people on it, or do you get a lot of pushback? Or
I find my moments and it's something that I'm continually learning and refining over time, is that, whether it's someone else's project or your even if it is your own project, like you find your moments to stand your ground, and you're not always going to win those battles, but you want to find those moments that, like, if I need to make this thing a little better, that's the thing that I need to plant my flag in and say, I think this will really help. And especially when you find a person or group of people that trust you and know you, and you have that really good working relationship, that you can put those flags down. And once you have that really good relationship, that person or group of people, like, perfect, great, thank you. That's exactly what we needed. You thought of it, not me. That's why you're here. That's why there isn't two of me. That's why there's one of me and one of you, because you think of those ideas and I think of my ideas,
yeah.
So definitely finding those moments.
Yeah. So what is your process? So like, okay, say you take on a gig and it's like a short film, for example, like a 10-minute short film. And they're like, we want you to do the sound design and we want you to mix it. Like where do you start? How do you, like, walk me through like a sound design for dummies? What?
So the first thing I do is I say, can I watch it? I don't care what state it's in. Just, can I see a cut of it? Because at the point that any filmmaker, any person on a project, unless it's like a specific like big thing out here in LA where it's like pre-production, but there's at least something. There's a pitch deck, there's a script, there's a something, right? And I'm like, let's see, can I see that? Whether it's a visual medium or a piece of video I can watch, or just a concept thing, let me just get into the world. And from there, I'll kind of like just log notes, because especially in like the indie film element, it's more of like, okay, we're done with the film. Now it needs that audio polish and it's done. Audio and coloring, post audio and coloring, like the very last two steps in all indie films. It's like the film's done. Oh, wait, PS, we need coloring and audio mix. And so once I get a turnover, once I get the project to work on, the first thing I do is I clean up the dialogue. That's always, because you want to watch it and you want to get into the story, unless it's like an artsy thing that doesn't really have dialogue or it's more of an afterthought. The dialogue is what drives the narrative, what drives the story. And so sound effects, music, that can all be added to help fill in. It can hide some things, but in general, the dialogue is the most important thing. You want it clear, present, so I spend the first big lift, probably like 60% of any mix is making sure that dialogue is right there. Especially in indie films, like unless you get into like a very genre specific films like horror or sci-fi, they're more narrative. Even comedies, dramas, it's more driven around the narrative, right? Around the story and the words. So that's where I spend most of my time. And once I have that done, then I want to build up the sound of the life of the scene and build the atmosphere and the music and the sound effects and footsteps and blah, blah, blah. But that's always, to me, once I know you can watch the film, get the story, get into the story, excuse me, and you can really follow along. And that's to me is always the focus, because the worst thing, I've been to enough film festivals where you watch these people put their life and heart and soul into a project, and it's like they didn't even, you can tell, you can, oof, like I've seen some rough passes where like the film's done except for audio. It's like, it looks beautiful. I can't watch this because I can't stand listening to anything.
Listening to it.
Yeah. I'd rather watch it on mute and enjoy it better. Because you need that, that pass, that my mantra has always been, especially with dialogue, is the best sound design will always go unnoticed. You'll never notice, you'll never have anybody would say, unless they're a sound guy, but they'll never say, wow, that ADR was fantastic. Oh my God, were you blown away? The whole point is you're not supposed to notice the ADR, you're not supposed to. So to me, by doing your job, you'll never be called out. So no news is good news when you can watch it and be into it. And you don't think about the sound. You don't think about the proximity of the mic or the boom mic or whatever, or any post work that's done. You just get into the world and get absorbed by it. And you don't even think about it. That's when the sound mix, especially with dialogue, that's in that sweet spot.
So what is that like? Because like as someone who came up as a performer, that's like, oh my God, right? Like, because if you're the unsung hero, so like, is it like, yeah, I'm putting a pat on my back, or like, what is that like to like, you know, really, really affect a project, but no one really knows, or no one thinks about it, or no one, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
what is that? You know, like we think about like when like the Oscars come around and like they do like the sound design Oscar. It's like most
Yeah.
people are just like, even though that's truly one of the most important parts of the actual project. Like, is it like just cool, whatever, we do our thing, we know it, or is there moments where you're just like, God damn it, like what about me?
There, yes, I definitely, of course, yeah, I wouldn't be human if I didn't have that, stamping the feet, but I wanna, um, that goes back to just, again, finding that moment of like, where do I want to shine? Like I've done a lot of indie films where I find the moment that goes, ooh, if I do this cool thing here, it's like almost like a music producer too. Like in an album, like someone writes and records a song, and it's like that post production, that flavoring, the coloring, the icing on the cake kind of thing that you find those moments to do that. Especially with sound design, and you lean into the tropes of whatever genre it is, and even if it's like a comedy or a drama where it's very straightforward, I just want it to feel real.
Yeah.
You want to believe what's happening, and so when I'm watching and I believe it's happening, I'm feeling good about that. And that kind of stuff, I'm not going to want a pat on my back. I'm just want to make sure everyone's happy, because to
Yeah.
me that feels good. That's satisfying to me. Is okay, we're all happy, we can watch it, we're enjoying the film, we're not pining over it, and oh, this cut, oh, this scene. It's like, no, you can watch it and enjoy. Oh, that was a nice, that's a nice film. That was great. That was fun to watch. It wasn't arduous, and you weren't taking notes all the time. And that to me feels so good to get to that point.
Yeah.
Um, but there definitely are, so depends on the project, some moments where I'm just like, you get opinionated very quickly when you get excited. Ooh, ooh, I see a thing. I see a thing. Does anyone else see the thing? Do you see the thing? That's a thing right there. And you try to find those flags again to stake and be like, let's do this. And whether or not you get shot down, or whether you're accepted with skeptical criticism, and all right, let's see what happens. But that's a to me part of the challenge is finding those moments to really shine.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it so when you watch movies like for your own enjoyment, like when you're Netflixing and chilling,
Mhm.
is that still a thing? I don't know if people still say that. But when you're Netflixing and chilling, are you like you're on a date at the
Mhm.
movies? Are you like totally preoccupied with the sound, or can you like get out of that mode and just like go with the flow of the movie?
I'm able to go with the flow of the movie, but I'm also like, my ear is so sensitive to hearing things that I'll hear when it's bad, and it won't like pull me out of like, oof, that can't watch that. Sorry, that one line. Nope, sorry, movie's over. Like it doesn't get like that for me, but it's more of like I hear it and I notice it, and I just kind of lock it in the back of my head. And what's funny is that I've been, my wife and I have been married for about 5 years, but we've been together for over 10 years. And so she knows me well enough. And I feel like, I've trained her, quote unquote, so that whenever it's obvious enough that she hears something that may be an issue or an error or a weird discrepancy, I look over at her and she looks over at me and I go, yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, like, but we keep watching it, enjoying it, but it's like, it's so funny. It's in a bizarre tangent. Basically, she's like an esthetician, does makeup and everything like that. And I know how important eyebrows are, and through our relationship, so I will do the same thing with her, and I'll point out really bad eyebrows, like whether it's like in public or a picture of someone. And I go, that's just, yeah, those are really bad. I go, okay, like, so I do the same thing, just with a different aspect of it. Um,
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, how did you make the trek from New York to Los Angeles?
So, while doing all the independent films in New York, and I graduated and I was teaching at NYU, I was teaching my graduate course in critical listening and ear training, and I'm working on internships. I'm working with a lot of studios and students. I got wind of a potential gig, and as many gigs are, they can be very, uh, um, undercover, like, this is what it is, but we can't tell you what it really is kind of thing. And so, but it was an animated thing. And I was like, oh, I love animation. I want to explore that side of things. That seems, that's something I'm very interested in. And through numerous interviews and through a whole long process, I got involved in the Showtime Colbert show, Our Cartoon President.
Okay.
And it started out like, I'm very tech savvy. So the head, and the audio director at the time hired me to help build the studios because there was no studio facility. So I helped build the studio for the show. And so through all of that, I got to work on that show. And through that show, over those like 3-4 years of that show, through that show, I realized that the end game for me was animation. Basically, I started getting kind of tired of like really terrible on-set location sound and the idea of being so not that you're not in animation, but like I don't know, I was kind of getting tired of the live action stuff, but that animation was this like this shiny new candy that I was just so drawn to.
Is it like because with animation, because it's just voiceover, it's like a blank canvas? Like you're not worried
Exactly.
about like, oh,
Yes.
shit, there was an airplane flying over. Or, oh no,
Correct.
somebody
Yes.
dropped something in the back and there's this knock that I can't figure out how to remove.
Yes, is exactly it. It was this blank slate, this like you can do anything. And with animation, sometimes it takes you to weird places. And so you have to create that weird place. Going back to Ben
Going
Burtt
back
with
to
like creating this.
Star Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that I fell in love with that. And through that show, I got to
So
befriend all.
before I move
Shoot, yeah,
forward
yeah,
with
yeah.
that show, so during that show, were you using like library effects, or did you go back to like the Smart and Final or the ShopRite and get like old potatoes and
That was all sound effects. There was occasion where you need a sound for it. It's very hit or miss, but that was very much, and I think that was also the style of that show. It was
right.
like the stock effects and everything. The and what helped me get into that show too, because there's you're recording a lot of dialogue for that. I did a lot of work. I found a couple post houses that I got connected with, again through those through connection, through recommendations. We're doing a lot of PBS work in New York,
Mm.
where there's documentaries. Everyone's Italian grandma will know who Lydia Bastianich is, and I worked
I
on
know who Lydia Bastianich is.
I got to
I
do.
once I'm sorry.
No, I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
She used to have a restaurant on
Mhm.
58th Street called Felidia. And I went there for dinner once, and they had us sitting. It was horrible because it was like packed, and didn't have a reservation or anything. We just like showed up. So we were sitting in the middle of the floor, and she was there that night. And because it was packed and there was no room, I like leaned back and I knocked over this entire tray of like 3 plates that the waiter was carrying, and she walked over and she was like, it doesn't matter, it's okay. But I was mortified.
My life is over. Oh
But
God.
I know who Lydia Bastianich is.
Oh my, it's amazing. I got to do a couple seasons of her show.
I used to watch that religiously.
Yeah,
My ex-husband used to love that show.
Seasons 5 and 7 of Lydia's Kitchen I did. As long as I recorded some specials, I did some voiceover with her.
When she was like cutting, were you like in the back like
so sometimes the mics, because the thing I did the most in that show was clean up all the oil cooking, because like she always has oil and butter cooking, so it's like shh. So you're trying to get her to sound clean, but there's just like the stoves are so loud. So I would have to add some knife chops and things like that to like show, okay, we're going to cut this now. And so you definitely had to, especially when you had so much cooking, frying noises that like you want, to emphasize how delicious that food is. And I love her mother was the best. The grandma. She just wants to drink and eat food. Just give me a drink. I'm good. It was so much fun so I got to cut my teeth on some really like, episodic, just week after week, challenging cooking show. It was challenging in that you have X amount of time to take a loud kitchen stage and make it sound good for PBS. And so that helped me when I got to doing the animation stuff, that it was like, okay, I've cut my teeth in some of those challenging things. Now I have my chops and I can really tackle any, building something from nothing with animation. I have those those chops to help build that something from nothing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's so great. Like you have such a, I mean, like the fact cooking shows, animation, film, television. Do you have I mean, like, so you fell into, you really felt you loved the animation. Do you have kind of like a favorite? Like if for whatever reason it was like, okay, for the rest of your career, you only have to work in this genre. Is there like one that you would say, okay, if I had to only do this, this is what would be the most interesting and challenging and fulfilling for me?
I think making anime cartoons, I would think, and I think recording not just recording the dialogue, but editing and mixing the dialogue, just the dialogue. Like I love working with composers, I love working with sound designers, but like I feel the way I ended up connecting with a lot of actors and just the voice acting community over the years, like I love that community. And so to get to have a chance to work with voice actors I grew up listening to, and like, like, oh, I know that name. Then you get on the call, like, hi, nice to meet you. I'll be recording you today. And I go, that voice is familiar. IMDb. Oh my God. I was 8 when they did this cartoon. And it's just like, it blows my mind that these now my colleagues, or like random cartoons, like everyone has certain cartoons or shows or video games that you quote all the time in your own head.
Yeah.
And so I do that, and it's like I'm now working with the guy that quote came from, or
Yeah. Is it ever like a shock though? Because like with voice actors, often they don't look like you expect them to. Like the voice,
Oh my
like is it ever
God.
like like
There's a couple characters. So, with the show Our Cartoon President, who's now a very close friend of mine, the actor who's the lead in that show, Jeff Bergman, he's the voice of Cartoon Trump and Cartoon Biden. And just the A and B of turning it on for both of those characters is hilarious and so stark. And then when I talk to him in real life, I could hear how he gets there, but like just having a talk with the person is so much. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're, especially if like, I can't believe, it's for comedy. You're saying all this vitriolic, stuff. And then you're just like, hi, how are you? You want some coffee? How's your day been? It's like, oh, hi, hello, human, And the more I got to work in that realm, like I've done a lot of stuff with Warner Brothers and a lot of video game stuff, which has very crazy characters. And it's just like, I love okay, so for this one, you want to be a little more subdued and a little more mysterious. Okay, got it. Hello, I'm gonna be it's like that turn of just like, and action, and then they're gonna talk like this, and it's like, whoa, that turning on a dime is insane to me, and it's so much fun. And when you're out of context, my wife hears it, I was like, who are you talking to? What group? No, that's just one guy. It's so much fun.
Oh my God, I absolutely love that. So what are you working on now? Are you working on anything exciting now
The big thing now
that you
is
can talk about?
Yes, to the extent I can talk about it. I'm working on my big gig right now is working at Riot Games on the series Arcane. The second season. So
the television show or the
yes.
Okay,
The animated series, the season 1 that's on Netflix, and then I worked on season 1, but now I'm in season 2. I was my titles vary, but if it's relating to dialogue, I'm doing it basically. So I was the production dialogue editor. So I'm in every recording session with all the actors. I'm now been given, very fortunate to have been given the role of being the ADR and dialogue editor for post-production. So I'm, we're the ones in the booth with the video, watching things and reacting, working with the actors. And so when as the sound super was like to me, he's like, when it comes to the dialogue, the buck stops with you. I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It was like, absolutely. And it just reinforces how much I love working with actors and having, even working with the writers, with the actors.
Said nobody ever. I love that you're I've met a lot of people. I've interviewed a lot of people for this show. I think that's the first time, Jose, you need to take that as a quote, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody.
I love
So
it.
it just
I love it.
reinforces how much I love working with actors.
It just because, like, I may not be the actor, but I'm, in this situation, but I'm helping create the life, and I, what I do know is that I can say that has been said is that we do have scripts, a version of scripts completed for the season. And, besides the writers, me and some of the production team are the only people who have been living with the scripts the longest for
Right.
years, because certain production and post-production, they get it, not after the fact, but like they're working one at a time or they're jumping around. But like in terms of having the scope of the arc of the season and what's happening, like I'm neck deep in it and I'm so excited and it's so much
Yeah.
fun. And that to me is a project that, it's a core memory. Like, there's certain gigs are core memory. This year and the foreseeable future, this show and these people are going to be an absolute core memory, and I love them all for
Yeah.
sure.
That's so exciting. That's so fun. So going back to Long Island, is your
Yeah.
family still all back on the island?
Yeah, they're still back in New York. Both my folks and my wife's folks. I have my dad's brother, my uncles in Bakersfield, and I have some cousins in Long Beach. So like we're not completely isolated family wise out here, which is
Yeah.
nice. But we're definitely a transplant that everyone's like, you're really going out. Like, people like, yeah, I love it out here. We made the move and we are so glad we did. We absolutely
Well,
love it out here.
well, my question with that, like, so
Yeah.
just going back to like before you found, sound design, just when you were
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna be a rock star, and your mother's taking pictures of you with your like goth hair and your,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, were they always very supportive of this idea of you going into some form of entertainment, whatever that may be? And like when you're like, okay, I'm gonna make sound for a living, were they like, that's cool, or were they were like, what?
Absolutely. I was very lucky in that. And they were always very encouraging. My mom is a social worker and a therapist. And my dad is, works a white collar job. He was a traffic engineer with AAA for like 30 something years. And, they both are supportive. Sometimes they're a little confused, not confused at like, what are you doing? But like, my parents want to make sure that I am safe and secure and have a career and I'm happy and I'm able to support myself. And so from the outside of the industry, it's hard to see like how do you support yourself on that? And I get it. And it was through doing it. And I think monumental things are always, it's so funny whenever there's a show that my name appears in the credits, like I get screenshots of like, aunts like sending me from their phone, like, I see your name in the credits. Like, again, all my Italian relatives that are like watching Lydia's show and they see my name in the credits, it's like they don't care about the show, they see that I know that guy. It was so sweet. It's so funny to see that. When the first episode of Cartoon President came out, as a Christmas gift. Oh no, it was a birthday. It was a birthday gift because the show aired in January and then of 2017, and then my birthday was in February. That I got as a gift a framed screenshot of a picture of the TV paused is what I had. And it was just my name framed because my mother was just so proud of me. And it was just so sweet. And it was just like, I loved it. It was just like, oh my God, like, thank you. This is the excitement just to see my name there and like, oh, I know that person. That's my son. So I've been very lucky to be so supported throughout my life.
That's so amazing because we had another friend on who's an actress, Lisa Cole, and she's in LA and she's a very successful working actress. I was joking because she's in every time I turn on the TV, she's like in like a pharmaceutical commercial or she's on a guest star on some TV show sitcom. And I was asking her because she's originally from Detroit. And I'm like, so when you go back to Detroit, are you a star? She's like, no, they don't even ask me what I'm doing. So I think that's so amazing that they're like,
that's great.
Do they come at you? Like, do they have like, hey, Matt, so we're getting married and we have our videographer. Can you like, do you get that?
Thankfully, no, but before I went to grad school, I was in IT and, trying to make money, I would help fix computers of like neighbors in the neighborhood. And like, I became everyone's personal IT consultant and sometimes at the worst time of day and just like at all times. And so it got to a point where I'm just like, no, I just go get a new computer. I'm not going to fix it. Like, no, I'm not, my phone's not doing this and that. Throw it out and get a new one. That's your best bet.
Like
sorry, I can't help you.
Broken, sorry.
Can't help you, sorry.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So as you think about your career and as you think
Mhm.
about the things that you've done and as you think about, you know, the next 10, 20 years of your
Mhm.
career, what are there things that you have on your, like, whether it's like a goal or a bucket list or, you
Mhm.
know, things like, oh my goodness, I really want to sound design a Marvel movie, or I really
Sure.
want to, like, what are those things that are like
So
those
what
goals or bucket list things for you?
Of course. So I am very lucky that like what I'm doing on like let's say with the Arcane series, I basically want to be doing with other shows and films like 100%. I've fallen in love with working with such a cool, amazing group of and talented group of people that I love that collaboration. You know, from indie film days, you when you're the sound person, you do every level of sound mixing, sound design, the editing, the cleanup, the this, that. When you're on a big production like this, everyone has their own job. There's 4 composers. I'm the dialogue person. There's 2 sound designers. There's an assistant sound editor who does all the editing of the Foley. Like there's a whole team, and I love that team element. And so working on those projects like that, is I just want to find more franchises or more films and games to do that with because it's so fun creating those worlds, especially as a kid watching cartoons, playing video games, and just like getting immersed as a player in those worlds. I want to
Yeah.
do that, but from the creation standpoint, because it's so much fun. It's just, you know, I don't care about spoilers for me, of course not, you know, externally, but like finding out about spoilers to me, that's not the point. Is the journey, you know,
Yeah.
and getting to that point, and then you get to a point where it's like we spent so much time as this team, blood, sweat, and tears. Now I want everyone else to enjoy it the way that we have throughout that creation process, you know. And that's why I've been doing that's how I segued into voice acting, was because I spent so many hours on one side of the microphone that I had a familiarity with it, that I'm like, I want to, that part of that creative side of it is I want to be on the other side of the mic, in front of the mic, helping create those characters and bring the story to life and everything. And so I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of
And you
great
know what's
folks.
needed to get it done in like 1 or 2 takes, because it's like, okay, I know this needs to happen, otherwise the sound guy is going to be like, dude.
I've heard the best and I've heard the worst. I've heard everything. Um, and and so I'm very fortunate that again, I'm friends with a lot of the actors that I work with. And so a lot of them are teachers and I take their courses, and it's a whole different community right adjacent, like parallel with the engineering and the inside of it. And so it's fun to be, because a lot of voice actors who have been doing this for so long are also casting directors, they're voice directors themselves. So it's like, you know, a lot of actors in cartoons and especially games, they're not they're everyone else is dancing on many sides of the mic and has helping create the thing with many hats. So for me, it's like I wanted to do that as well. I wanted to be helping create the thing, you know, not just as an engineer, not just as a dialogue editor, and not just as a musician, but I also want to help make the thing as a creative voice myself, very literally. And so it's been fun to do that. And I hope that 5 to 10 year goal is that where I am now with being on the post-production audio side of making some amazing shows and films and games, I hope to be on the acting side as well, within that time, to kind of, so I can look back and say, now I see those paths catching up to each other, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exciting. That's so exciting. That's like
Thank you.
so
Yeah.
thrilling. That's so thrilling. Your wife is an esthetician. Does she work with entertainers, or does she work just like at a spa, or is she, are you guys both like this like Hollywood power couple who's like
So she right now, my wife is a full-time superhero mom, because we had when we moved to California in January of 2021. In February of 2021, we found out we were pregnant. And
oh,
so now we have a 16-month-old beautiful little girl. And so my
oh
wife is being full-time mom as her job. And you know, she talked about going back to work and finding things once our daughter is like a preschool age kind of thing, but that for now she's, you know, very happy being mom. And
yeah.
so it's my job
Is
to help support her in that.
is the little daughter, is she gonna go into show business?
Oh, she's a character.
Have you used her, some of her, have you used
No,
some of her,
God,
do you
yeah.
like go up to her like crib and like put the mic there and just take sounds?
She loves playing instruments. She doesn't know how to play them, but like I have like a lot of random sound design things. Like I have these pedals that make noises, and so I'll just sit on my lap and I'll turn it on. She just turns the knobs and makes noises. Like I have pianos that she'll walk into the room and just like look at it and start hanging the key. So I put her up on the stool. I turn on the pianos and she's playing along, just like do do do, and like chatting to herself and playing along on the pianos. And she actually knows the difference between hitting the keys hard and soft now. When she first started
Okay.
doing it, it was all just bang bang bang, but
Yeah,
now it's like she knows how to hit them
I've
gently
worked
and
with
then
a
hit them
lot of
harder. And
drummers who don't understand that. So I think that's
I mean, there's more than one volume.
dynamics aren't in their vocabulary.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, have you like started like putting a microphone in her face and like getting some sounds to use for your own?
I try, but the thing is she loves watching videos of herself, like, of her doing silly things. So like anytime there's a chance to do that, she's like,
worse than a show
give
business
me.
person. She's gonna be an influencer.
There's a future yet for you, girl. No, she's so much fun. And like she's so playful and so silly, and I'm very rambunctious with her. I'm like flipping her and spinning her around, and no one in my family likes roller coasters, so it's my goal to make her my roller coaster buddy in training, and to like enjoy being flipped and turned around and thrown around. And she does love that. Like she'll do a thing where like she's laying on the couch and then all of a sudden she just drops her head and sticks her butt out, and that's the sign to pick her up by the legs and flip her around and smack her on the couch. And she just has this look of complete joy of like, do it again, like.
I love it. Well, so because I've talked to actors about this, and they say like it totally does. Has becoming a parent affected, or like has that in any way influenced the work that you do, or how you go about your work, or some of the things that you're conscious of when you're creating?
100%. The first thing I realized is priorities. Is that especially when it's just two of you and a small tiny creature you have to learn how to keep alive, you also have to keep yourselves alive. And so learning how to prioritize that and still work. And because as a freelancer, I'm not a full-time employee in any one company. I'm a freelancer, I'm a contractor. So I don't have paternity. I don't have the luxury of having, time off at a company that I can continue to get paid and just, whatever. So I have to kind of trickle back the work back in and keep working. And so early on, I learned like what's important. What's important is my kids' health, my wife's health, and my health, and just making sure we're okay. Second is the work and getting that not just taken care of, but like what's important. As much as I want to take on every gig that comes across my plate, I can't. I need to prioritize what's important for me, what's important for my future, what's important for my family's future. And then through that, I was fine-tuning what kind of gigs matter to me. And now I'm at the point where I find projects that I'll be proud to show my daughter when she's older, basically.
Yeah.
That there's a couple like indie projects that I'm working on that are like feature animation projects that won't come out for a little while, but like, I'm working on them, couple them, right now for free, because that doesn't matter to me. What matters is this is something that I am so excited in a few years to sit down and watch with her.
Yeah.
And just for her to like, that's the kind, like, if I can be proud of it to show her, that's the kind of work I want to do. And so that's now my focus through everything that I do, is that I try to find things that in my gut, does it feel like something that I can say at the end of the day, I'm proud of that I did this. And I want to show my little girl who I have so much love and trust and excitement for, that I like, check this out. I want you to see this with me. Daddy's not in the TV, but daddy helped him make it. And this is something that, I want to share with you. What do you think? And so that's kind of my drive now.
And most importantly, if daddy didn't do it, that person on TV would be a garbled mess.
Oh, yes.
Where can, if anyone wants to find out a little bit more about you and your projects, are you on social media at all?
Yeah, just my name, Matt Kulewicz .com. That's my site. It's been a goal of mine to be better with social media. So I've been focusing on like the Instagram. Spike's Play Food. It was an old like screen name from college. So
Spike's Play Food. That sounds
yeah.
like a name of it. That's a good name for your production company, I think. That sounds like it, doesn't it?
Especially if I was a chef. Especially if I was a chef.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hi there, it's Jordan Van Haslo. Yes, that's right, that Jordan Van Haslo. I don't know if you know this, but everyone's favorite radio show and podcast is now available on Spotify. That's right, Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and friends, my weekly one-on-one chat with some of the most interesting people I know from the entertainment and the arts communities, can now be streamed on Spotify. That's right. I share real estate with Michelle Obama.